relationship building. But before we get into the content of the program, a couple political announcements from the Volunteer and Combination Officer section. But if we're using audio voice over IP technology for this, it is being recorded. We hope that you're listening through your headset. Sometimes that's better to hear than your speakers, but make sure they're turned on and the volume is turned off. If you should have problems or technical difficulties, you can go into the chat section of the webinar, or you can go email webinars@ifc.org and we will help you figure out your technology problems. I will tell you, for whatever reason your computer should freeze up, the thing that I've learned to do is just log out and log right back in. And you won't miss much. Probably take you about a minute to do that. If it happens to Lee or I, we'll carry on for that minute while it takes either one of us to log back in. So if you have a problem, log out, log back in. We will have chat available. Sherry will be monitoring the chat session. We would love for you all to introduce yourselves, just to give us some idea of where you're from. We've had a good international representation. We've had one person, I believe he's from Peru. He actually came back last time. He missed a couple, but he's been on almost every one of our webinars. And so we have a good international representation. But we like to know where you're at from a state perspective as well. So you use that question and answer section. We will save question and answers until the end. And so that way, unless there's something that you say, hey, we absolutely don't understand what they just said, go back. We will go back for that kind of request. But just a general question and answer we'll save to the end. We will have handouts. The PowerPoint will be available in the handout section. So you don't have to worry about taking screenshots or making notes of what's on the screen. You'll be able to download that. Whether you're a member of the IFC or not, you get access to all these things. The VCOS has been in business since 1994. We are celebrating our 20th year this year. We will be celebrating that at Fire Rescue International in August. That is one of the things the International Fire Chief does. We have Symposium in the Sun in November in Clearwater Beach, Florida. If you've never been, you need to get down there. And not only do you get down there, you get to hang out on the beach, but more importantly, you get 3.5 days of education. And it's pretty intense, pretty busy. We keep you busy so your bosses can't say, oh, you're going down there for a vacation. Well, you might stay an extra day or two and enjoy it, but most people go and they're very, very busy getting educated. We do monitor legislation in Washington, D.C. Some of the other things, I'm not going to go over there. You can see that stuff, and hopefully you have used some of those services from the VCOS, whether you're a member or not. Obviously, the chair would like for me to encourage you all to be members, and I would encourage you to be members. But I do know for some fire departments, the cost is not doable based upon your budgets. Other things that we do is we write ribbon reports. Our newest report is on support canines. If you've not downloaded that, or if you're interested in starting a canine support program, I encourage you to go download the Amber Ribbon Report. We're in the second edition of the Behavioral Wellness Report, and then the second edition of the Cancer Best Practices Report. And you see some of the other reports that we have there. Hopefully we'll have a data report out in, it says early 2024. I probably need to change that slide to the second half of 2024. We had some technology issues and some content issues. We're having the U.S. Fire Administrator in it, so it takes a little bit different tactic in order to make sure that we don't say anything that would offend the federal government. So that's going to be out probably the second half of 2024. Some of the upcoming events, more webinars that are coming up. I hope you realize you put it on your schedule for every Tuesday at this time, and we're doing different webinars. Hopefully they're all of interest of you. If you have any ideas on webinars, send them to me, and I'll be glad to get them on a schedule. There are some of the IFC events that are coming up there, and so that's it. We would like to inform all of the attendees. Chuck Flynn, who served as chair for 6 years, stepped aside from the chairman's position in February because he had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He died last Wednesday. He was a good friend to everybody that met him. He was funny. He would make you laugh. And he was very serious when he had to be serious, but he understood how important levity is in the fire service. He also, even though some people, since he died of pancreatic cancer, some people say, oh, you shouldn't say that, but he enjoyed a cigar, a good cigar. And but he served great as a fire chief, or served his time as a fire chief, several offices throughout the International Association of Fire Chiefs. And we dedicate this presentation today to Chief Chuck Flynn, VCOS chair from 6 years, 2016 till 2024 or 20. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not doing the math very good there. So let's move on with the webinar. Well, we're going to do this as a team teaching method today. For those of you that have been on webinars, most of the time I'm sitting here pretty quiet, but I'm going to co-present this. I've been around the fire service for a little over 53 years. In May, it'll be 54 years. I was a fire chief, state fire academy director, and then involved with the International Association of Fire Chiefs as well. But our second presenter or co-presenter today is Lee Turpin. Lee is currently the Director of Operations for American Medical Response, and he's been in the fire service and emergency medical service for a long time. I will not disclose how long he's been in it, but he is a volunteer firefighter, EMT basic, EMT paramedic. He has moved up in the leadership positions of AMR, his current employer. But my final introduction point is he is the chairman of the State of Indiana EMS Commission, which regulates emergency medical services in the state of Indiana. And with that, I will turn it over to Lee Turpin. Lee?
Thank you, Chief. This all started, honestly, with a discussion on relationships. Chief Buttman had made a post back in October that, and I'll read it verbatim, relationship building should be a significant part of a leader's education. And I simply saw that on Facebook, and I made the comment that it's all about relationships. Everything we do is in the realm of relationships. And the next day, my phone rang, and it was John, and he told me that we were going to be doing a webinar on this. And I know John well enough, and we have a great enough relationship that I know when he says we're going to do something, I'm going to follow, because I have absolute trust in him that it's going to be a good thing when it comes up.
Well, thank you. We know that both Lee and I understand that relationships is the key to success from a leadership perspective. And so we're going to start off with a poll. And Sherry, our poll person, will start the poll. Just answer the questions, if you would, please, about how important relationships are. And if you get along, they will go along. Does that improve relationships, true or false? I don't see any results coming up, Sherry.
We do have about 9 that have indicated true, and 1 is false.
Okay. All right. We don't expect everybody to agree. So let's go to the second poll question.
Looks like everybody agrees with that one.
All right. Move to the third one.
Again, everybody agrees with you.
All right. And the final one.
True is the answer.
All right. Well, somebody, I guess, and no, you don't have to identify yourselves. That's not the point. But somebody said false on if you get along, they will go along. It's important to be relationship building. So, Lee, you want to tackle anything about that one?
Well, relationship building, from my perspective, I don't know how to put it. That there's so many people that don't want to build relationships. And I think that's someone's always struck me as odd, in that I want to get to know the people that I work with, in not just necessarily in my own entity, my own agency, but in the agencies that I interact with daily. I want to know what I can do as a servant leader for them, what I can do to make their day better. And unless I build relationships with them so that they are open and honest with me, I can never really know what their true mission is, their true goals are, their desires in life, what they would like to see the overall mission become between two entities that work together. I think it's imperative that we have relationships that are more so than just the interactions that occur on scenes or the interactions that occur in meetings when maybe we have two different agendas that butt heads. I think we're more likely when we build a relationship to find more common ground and more work on the win-win scenarios that benefit everyone.
All right, thank you. Now, I will tell you, since I wrote that question, I expected the answer to be false. And here's why. Because as in a leadership position, you don't have to get along for them to go along. Sometimes you have to push them or pull them along. Pull them along would probably be a better term to use. So, because you can't, as a leader, you can't always give up your position for their position, hoping they will go along. Now, it goes down to that bottom question of choose wisely which hills to die on. Now is when you got to have that balance. When am I going to stand my ground? Because let's just say it's an ethical issue. I'm going to stand my ground. If I think you're doing something unethical, I'm going to die on that hill. So I thought we'd have a few more false answers to this question. So, but again, some good conversation. Lee and I don't always have to agree. That's one of the things we figured out. Loyalty is another one. And Lee, I'll let you do the respect one here in a minute. But loyalty is, to me, it's very important. My father told me this years ago. Remember who your friends are. All right. And I don't mean friends in the total social aspect. But if you're not loyal to your friends, who are you going to be loyal to? And loyal friends can be followers, and they can be people above you in a chain of command. But loyalty, in my opinion, in today's cultural environment, we don't continue to think how powerful loyalty is in enhancing relationships. Lee, anything on respect?
I think just a baseline mutual respect as human beings before we even get started with the respect for each other's responsibilities, the respect for what we have to produce, the respect for what we have to provide as outcomes to a community. I mean, one of the rules that I'm really big on within my organization is no one gets to raise their voice in normal conversation to another individual. When we do, it's time to check ourselves and to stop and to come back online with the mission and have respect for each other's beliefs so that we have that ability for civil discourse. Nothing comes out of disrespecting another individual. It's really when things start to deteriorate, when you see the disrespect that can occur, when we start to undermine or when we start to resort to talking about character assassination on other individuals, that never gets us anywhere. The respect's necessary to come to common ground and to keep moving forward and produce great outcomes and do better things for our communities.
You made a very interesting point there. Is about each other's beliefs, and so is there a word? And we didn't rehearse this, our audience. Is there a word that you think really relates to how you can demonstrate you're treating other people with respect?
Or demonstrate other people respect.
Demonstrate that you're treating them with respect.
Yeah. Just that simply, I can see your viewpoint. I can, or explain further to me. Explain to me how that impacts things. Educate me on your viewpoint, because I may not have the perception.
Maybe I should have said two questions, because I think you just identified it, Lee. You want to show somebody respect when they're talking to you about something. Ask a question, because that lets them know, number one, I'm listening to what you're saying, and number two, I want to hear what you're saying. I want to hear why you say what you say. So I think that's, again, a very good point on how you treat everyone with respect. Is when they come to you with the issue, with a problem, with something they want to talk about, ask questions, pay attention to what they're saying. So, all right. So hopefully that helps give some people, some of our attendees, a little bit of understanding of what we're going to talk about. When we look at relationships, and we already said it's all about relationships, and we probably have mentioned a couple of these things already in that first discussion, but hypocrisy. And so, it's like, how do you avoid hypocrisy? And here's a challenge for all of us. Lee started out as the EMT basic and became a paramedic, became a supervisor, became the boss, became the big boss. And how many people will come to Lee and go, oh, when you were a paramedic, you didn't do this before? Well, many people aren't still alive that were firefighters before I became fire chief, but they would say the same thing to me. Or when I became state fire academy director, it's like, well, we didn't have to do this when you were coming up. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, but you do now. But how do you avoid some of that hypocrisy that may come up, Lee, as you're getting promoted within a system?
Well, I'm a firm believer on explaining the why. Number one, because things do change. We live in a world of change. And when you get into leadership, you kind of automatically are expected to become a change merchant. There's going to be things that you're going to want to push, that you're going to want to change and make better. And there's going to be things that are going to be handed down to you that you're given the responsibility to change and make better. So when they use that against you to say, you didn't have to do this, why are you making us? Or would you really do this if you were in my position? The answer for me to lead and to say it correctly is yes. And not only that, I'm going to get in there beside you and I'm going to train, and I'm going to get in there beside you and do the same job. I'm going to try my doggondest to get out there in the field and watch you do this change and help you with this change, and maybe even tweak the change if it isn't working right, or side with the folks that say, okay, the change isn't working. Now I have to become a change merchant to go the other direction and say, we tried this. It was not what we thought it would be. And we're going to go back to the center again and start over. But I think the hypocrisy comes in when they ask you those questions and you're staying the course for no other reason than you want to stay the course so that you don't appear that you did something wrong. I'm a firm believer in falling on the sword and say, I own this. I'm not going to force you to do something that's wrong. We're going to fix it.
Oh, Lee, I think I quote my father a lot. I know, Lee, you can probably do the same thing, but he always told me, don't stand up for something that you really can't stand up for just because you're going to look silly. And they're going to understand that, well, he doesn't know why he's doing what he's doing, except he's hard-headed, or she is hard-headed. So I think it's a good conversation there. We talked a little bit about loyalty, giving preference to others. I want to jump down to the sacrifice your idea for others. I think in a leadership position, in order to improve relationships, you have to understand, even though you can have 5 bugles or you can have the title on your shirt that says director, that doesn't mean you have the best idea. I believe in Stephen Covey's begin with the end in mind, one of his principles. And so when I go into some meeting or some kind of conversation about new ideas, I don't like a blank sheet of paper. I want to go in and here's my idea. But just because it's my idea, and some of my friends now call them Buckman's wild ass ideas, because we'll have a conversation. I know that when I throw my idea out there, I'm not going to get exactly what I wanted. And so I'm willing to negotiate. I'm willing to give in. There may be some things I won't give in on, but nobody has 100% correct ideas 100% of the time. So there are times when you need to sacrifice your idea. It may be the EMTB that just started work at the service, or it could be that probationary firefighter who's been on the job for 11 months. They may have a better idea than you do because they have a different perspective. And so you got to keep that in mind. What is their perspective? And that goes into that next statement there of identifying with others. You want to talk about perspective there, Lee?
Yeah. It's the identifying with others. And I think when John and I were discussing this, I brought up a story from the past I thought was pretty apropos for this. I had a leader above me at one time that made a comment. We were coming out of a meeting, and I believe it was with a hospital administrator. And my boss looked at me and said, I'd really like to know that guy better. And I remember going through this and thinking at that time, And I thought, this is one of those situations where I want to open my mouth or where I don't. And I decided to open my mouth and say something because this individual had said to my leader several times, we really need to get together sometime and play golf. And so I said, okay, you said you wanted to get to know him. He's offered like 5 times that I've heard for you to go play golf with him. And the response kind of back from my leader was, I'm not going to do that. And I was kind of like, okay, then don't lament that you don't get to know the individual. You know, how are you going to identify with them and be able to communicate better, be able to actively listen with that individual, or know the things that they have on their plate. If you don't spend time talking with them, and it can be business, you can play golf and play business and the rules, or you can learn to people personally, but you can't identify with people unless you try. You have to try to identify with others. It just doesn't happen. You have to actively be engaged to build a relationship and identify on their level of what things that are important to them.
And that's key is that relationship is what's important to them. And you don't always get the answer to that question by sitting across from each other in a desk or in a conference room. And you don't get to know each other personally. You know each other professionally, but relationships are built upon personal relationships as much as they are built upon professional relationships. So again, how do you figure out how to improve those relationships without doing stuff off record, so to speak, or out of the office, or going to dinner, going to lunch? Business people know the value of lunch, but in the public sector, we may not know the value of lunch as well. So, you want to say something? Go ahead, Lee. I'm sorry.
I just want to reinforce that. One of the things that I talk about in the leadership courses that I teach locally, just for my people, is the concept of table time. Table time to me is one of the most important things you can do as leaders. You have to stop. You have to sit down. You share a meal. You talk. That's where the conversation comes out. That's where, and you can solve the problems of the world with table time.
Yeah, good point. And from a fire chief perspective, and I, don't really know the different types of people who are listening here, but I would say in a career department, the fire chief has got to get out of the office into the fire stations, sit around the kitchen table and talk with them. I will tell you and warn you against letting your guard down when you are sitting around that kitchen table, because in today's world, you could make a statement, a totally innocent statement that could come back to haunt you later. So remember, when you go there, go to the kitchen table or go sit in the fire station, sit on the tailboard if you can find a tailboard, and have a conversation. Be careful what you say. All right. We've been trained. Hopefully we've all been trained in bullying, harassment, sexual comments, ethnic comments. Get that stuff out of your vocabulary. Remember who you are. And I don't care if you're a firefighter or EMTB and you're talking to another firefighter or EMTB. You cannot say stuff like that. I know of a guy who was in a fire station for 20 years who went in the office and made a comment about a black firefighter. It wasn't the comment that got the person in trouble. It was that they identified the person as a black firefighter and they were discriminating against that black firefighter. And so you got to be careful. I know firefighters hate this when we're told this. You need to go to sensitivity training. All right. It is a different world. I did not realize until, I'll just say 2 years ago, I'm sitting in a meeting and a black fire chief makes a comment about when you stand up in front of a class and you say, well, if you guys will do this, you're actually insulting the females in your audience. They are not guys. And I have struggled with that since I was told that. And I told the person afterwards, thank you very much. I didn't realize it, but I try to say, you firefighters, you members, being very generic, men and women, being very generic and being sensitive to their needs. Why should we insult people on purpose, for sure, but not by accident? Find out what makes them, what impacts their sensitivity. And you go, oh, firefighters got to be tough. They got to learn to take it. I've had that conversation with a large metro city fire chief. He goes, they need to earn their stripes. They've got to put up with some of this harassment. And I go, no, they don't. You'll be in trouble quicker than anything if you harass people. So, Lee, anything to add to that?
Yeah, actually, back on the thing of the comments and getting the words out of your vocabulary, and almost everyone has been guilty of those things at one time or another. I've got a standard because people will test the waters with that. They'll say something, and then if they get away with it, they'll stretch it a little bit further. So my line is always to say, there is a line, guys, or there is a line, everyone. I'll say something like that to kind of bring it back to center. And one of the leaders I work alongside, in the office next to me, as a matter of fact, he's very fond of saying, you can't say that. I mean, he'll put a stop to it. He'll say, you can't say that. And that's, I think it's very appropriate. And lastly, just to call attention to one of the comments that's over in the chat from Dan K. I said, in my opinion, relationship building is strategic. People won't go along with you unless they can get along with you. That actually slides in here because I think everyone's met the person that they can't really get along with who doesn't even try to get along with other people.
Okay. Well, you made a comment about what they will tolerate. And I think that's a very good point in that if you fire chiefs on this webinar today or listening to it in the future think females are not still harassed in your fire stations, and I would say probably the same thing in your ambulance stations, you're wrong. Or I tell you, go to the Women in Fire conference. 6 months ago, I was not there, but I had a very, very good friend call me and tell me it's not over. These females are talking about harassment kind of things still going on in the fire stations today that were going on 10 and 15 years ago. And the question becomes, so why don't they speak up? And here's the answer. I had two females, fire chiefs, tell me, I don't want that to be what I'm known for the rest of my life. So they sit there, shut up, and take it. What you're doing is creating a hostile work environment. And that will get you fired quicker than anything. It's harder to prove harassment. It's not really hard to prove a hostile work environment. All that the person has to say is, you make me feel uncomfortable. And guess what? You're guilty. We firefighters and EMTs, paramedics, we need to go to training on how to talk and act around others. You can say, oh, well, I learned that when I was growing up. Yeah, I did too. But what my mom and dad taught me is not the thing I need to learn today. So again, identifying with others is a big part of this relationship. I know we don't like the word sensitive, but we need to be sensitive to others' personal needs. Anything else, Lee?
Yeah, when you think about that particular topic, and sometimes we bristle a little bit when someone tells us we have to take training, but like unconscious bias training, and 8 hours of unconscious bias training, I kind of shuddered at that. And I thought, well, it's going to be specific to this or specific to that. And when I come out of 8 hours of unconscious bias training, is what I learned is when I start to look at data, I have confirmation bias. When I start to look at any situation, I already have a predefined bias. And every last one of us, whether we're dealing with people and issue, data, we have these biases. And the whole purpose of unconscious bias training is not necessarily to say your bias may or may not be right, but it's realize you have the bias so that you can look at things objectively. And so that you can look at this and say, okay, this isn't somebody just complaining. This really offended somebody, and then learn why it offended them. And there are a lot of different things out there that cause that. I bristled at first at that term unconscious bias, but now that I look back on it and realize just how much that permeates all of our personalities, and all we have to do is be aware of it so that we can change and make our relationships better.
Right. I'll give you one example, then we'll move ahead. a board of directors and a young firefighter and a senior firefighter were at a meeting, and this young firefighter called me up afterwards and said, "Yeah, I don't know what to do about this." He said, "This board member treats me with disrespect because I'm young and dumb in his opinion." And I said, "Give me some examples." He said, "Every time I will suggest something, he basically blows me off and tells me my comments are not valid and we should not be listening to him." And I said, "Well, here's what I'm going to ask you. Can you have a civil conversation with this individual without getting into yelling and screaming?" And he said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, think about it for a week. Call me back. I'll give you some tips on what to say and how to say it." And then about 6 weeks later, he called me up and he said, "I had a conversation." And the guy said he apologized. He said, "I had no idea. It was a tone of voice. It was the inflection on his voice. And it was the look on his face that were transmitting that message that, hey, young guy, shut up. You don't know anything." So just one example of being able to identify from that other person's position in an organization. All right. We'll move ahead. All right. I think we probably talked about being open-minded and treat everyone with respect, but doing everything possible to keep peace. Oh, my. Whether you're the director of operation or operations director or the fire chief, that is one big part of your job. You are a referee. I don't know how many fire chiefs tell me after they get to be fire chief 3 months later, they'll call me up and go, "I had no idea what this job was about." It's not about, it is about money, but then it's about being a referee. He said, people come to my office and they want to fight about everything. And your job is to keep peace and learn to bring people together and negotiate positive outcomes. Lee, anything to add?
Yeah. I think the corollary to the end game of that is very true. For example, if you don't do everything possible to keep the peace, once you've lost the peace, the recovery time is so much greater. When things deteriorate to the point when people refuse to come back to the table, or they refuse to come to common solutions, or they start, and I've used the term earlier in this, character assassination on each other just out of frustration, nitpicking at every little flaw that the other person on the other side has. Those things just are very hard to recover from. And those relationships can be fractured to the point that they can't be repaired. And that happens not only with individuals, but with groups and entities as well.
Oh, Lee, you used two of my words that just light me up today. Character assassination. It is so easy in today's social media environment to assassinate anyone's character with a simple post on a social media platform. True or false, you can ruin a person's reputation and never recover from it. I have three. I have three good fire chief friends of mine who have been assassinated via social media, who's had investigations. Two of them out of the three, their investigations have been completed. They did nothing wrong, but is that removed from the internet? No, it's not. It's still there. You as a fire chief need to understand, or you as a leader, director, or fire chief, whatever your title is, supervisor, you need to understand we have to discourage that. My father told me, if you're going to do something for the right reason and it won't make you feel guilty, then do it. But if you're going to say, if I do this, I'm going to feel guilty, I'm going to feel bad, then don't do it. And it's so important today because the young people of today have no idea how they are ruining a person's reputation. And it's ruined for years. It's, this one fire chief friend of mine is trying to get his accusations, which have been proven false, accepted by the city as false, to get it removed from the internet searches, the Google search and all that stuff. And he goes, I can't. He said, there are companies they want me to spend a lot of money with them to do that, but I can't. So in today's environment, dealing with personalities is a big part of what leaders do. Lee, anything to add?
it, I don't know if I could say it any better on that one. I really don't, because I just hate to see someone destroyed, especially when you're sitting out. You're not the one that did the character assassination. You weren't the target, but you sit back and you can see that the target was absolutely innocent, and you're wondering how you can convince the person targeting them that what they're doing to them is wrong and incorrect. And it's almost like you're in a helpless position to help anyone. They're so intent on destroying someone.
Right. And they can do it anonymously. So it's like, it's not like in the old days. I know this is be foreign to some people, when you put pen to paper and filed a complaint and you had to sign your name to it. Today, you can do it. My father, so I changed jobs. The last time I changed jobs was 40 years ago, before I retired. And when I got this new job, he told me back then, don't tell anybody until the day you start where you're going. And I said, what? He said, all it takes is for one person to make a phone call to your new employer and you won't have a job. And back then I thought, oh, Dad, you're kidding. Well, guess what? One of the guys, whenever Governor Daniels left here in Indiana, which is now like 12 years ago, one of my bosses who got a new job, I had to take him home because the governor had unappointed him. And he said, I got a new job. I said, oh, please don't tell me. I do not want to know where you got this new job at, because I might let it slip. And then somebody makes a phone call. He didn't tell me. I did find out whenever when he's driving to work that next day. That was actually 2 weeks later. And, he called me up and said, okay, I'm going to my new job. And he told me where it was. But I still believe that today. If you're changing jobs, don't tell anybody, because it could come back to haunt you. All right, let's move on to remove revenge from your life. Lee, I don't know if you want to jump on that one first.
I'll take it, because it gets you nowhere. I mean, if anything, it perpetuates a problem and continues going on. Try to be above and beyond reproach is the number one thing. Let the darts be thrown your way, and deflect them where you can with facts, and with even sometimes you can say, I understand why they may think that, but here's the fact with it. Instead of going and falling to the same level of the attack or something that has occurred. But I love this thing that John put in here. Let God judge others and you love them, because I really believe that my role, not only as a leader, but my role as a human being, is to do four things. It is, and I'll say the best one for the last on this, but the first three is to provide service. It's to provide compassion to whoever I'm leading or whoever I contact. And it's, in a certain sense, to be sacrificial. If I'm not hurting sometimes a little bit in what I'm doing for someone, or doing for an issue, or doing for an entity, then I'm probably not doing 100% of what I could do in there. But the last one I want to touch on is that word love that John used. And love is actionable. Love without action is dead. And when I come to work every day, I have a responsibility, even to, and we all have somebody, be it in the firehouse or be in your location in ambulance service, you get that one person that annoys you. It's still your job to absolutely love them and make sure that they're taken care of and their human needs are met. And when I think about the fire chief to the townships to the north of me, the two fire chiefs up there, it's my job to love them and care about the things that they love about and do things for them. I don't know how to do this job of providing community service and emergency response, and how we can do it if we don't love the people that we do it with, both internal and external. And that love, by saying that, I mean, is taking action to do what they need for support.
Well, thank you for the comments about love. And, I'll say about 20 years ago is the first time that I ever said, I love you, to four men that were not related to me. We're just friends through the International Association of Fire Chiefs. One was Don Mano, teacher at the National Fire Academy, Rich Marinucci, fire chief in Farmington Hills, Michigan, and then Jack McElfish, who at the time I think was fire chief in Wallingford, Connecticut. He could never keep a job. He kept moving around. He was fire chief in 5 different places. Great guy. And then the final one was Billy Goldfeder. And since then, we've always said, I love you to each other. And we get off the phone. And then about 2 years ago, when Billy called me and said, I have prostate cancer, and I cried. And this is just a guy I met hanging out at the International Association of Fire Chiefs, but we became that close of friends. And so, men don't usually say, I love you to each other, but it's part of that relationship building. You don't have to say it every day, but, something happens. I mean, I said it last week. I was at Smoke Divers here in Indiana, and I said it to this young firefighter who actually, it's sort of funny. I passed out 2 years ago at Smoke Divers on the last day during certificate presentation. I walked to the bathroom and fell flat on the floor. His Indianapolis firefighter named Nico, and he was like, oh my God, I can't let him die. Not in front of all these firefighters. And so when I saw him at this conference this last week, and we left to hug when we left, and I said, I love you. And he said, I love you back. And it's like, man, it makes you feel good. And revenge increases stress in your life. We have enough stress without taking more on. I've just told this story, and I know some of you paramedics on here will be going, dear God, John, hopefully you're lucky you didn't stroke out. But we're getting ready to go to a taxing district here at my fire department. I'm the president of the board of directors. And so I got to get the board of directors to agree to it. I got to get 3 public meetings conducted to agree to it. And, demonstrators don't show up and derail us. And my blood pressure on that Monday of that week was 204 over 124. On Friday, after the meetings happened and the approvals happened, my blood pressure was 122 over 64, which is where it's at normally. Now, so let's relate this to revenge. So when you feel that someone did you wrong and you get angry and you pound on the table like I'm doing now, Sherry's going, too much noise. But when you feel that anger just increases your blood pressure, stress on your body, heart rate. I mean, all those things, they're not good for you. If you think somebody did you wrong, confront them in a positive way. Don't let revenge ruin your life. I talked to people. I had to, when I was president of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, I had to fire a person because he used the IF's, the International Fire Chiefs credit card, to gamble. I never felt so much pressure in all my life to not fire him, but I did. And later that day, I saw him walking down the hallway, and I walked across the hallway and shook his hand, shook his hand and said, Ken, I want you to understand, it's behind us. It's over. And he told some of his friends he could not believe that I would walk over and talk to him when I had just fired him, terminated him. I don't have revenge. I got nothing to gain by getting back at somebody. And you as a leader today, you have nothing to gain except hurting your relationships with others, because they know if you make John mad, he's going to exert revenge upon you. He's going to make you pay. That's not your job as a leader. If they deserve discipline, then give it to them. If they have an issue, you sit down with them. They say they won't do it again. They say they've learned from it. Then don't bring it up ever again, unless they break the rules again. But Lee, you talked about sacrifice. As a leader, we sacrifice a lot: personal time, family time, so on and so forth. But we have to sacrifice for the good of the organization. All decisions that you make as a leader will not always be good for you as the leader, but they may be good for the organization. So that's the part about getting past this revenge thing. It is one of those things. It's just not good all around for you. Anything else, Lee, you want to add?
Yeah, and this one kind of slides a little both ways on that, but and this is a personal pet peeve of mine. Even I worked with a leader for a long time that their favorite saying, and they didn't throw it out at least once a week, like clockwork. It was odd, but they'd say, it's not personal, it's just business. And there is a point. There is a point where a lot of things are business, but when we fail to realize the personal impact on the individual, we fail across the board, because it's like you said, what you did to that individual, you kept the personal side. You were able to go up and talk to them again. But if I have to fire somebody, sometimes I have to sit back and think, okay, I'm doing this from a business perspective, but I am concerned about, I just took their livelihood away. And maybe they were in the middle of a health issue and had benefits that were covering that. And there's a part of me that says, what kind of resources are here? Even though I just did the termination, what kind of resources can I direct this person to? Because anything that we do, I don't know about you, but in the job that I'm in, this job's been my entire life. I've been here 41 years now. And I'm like, I can't imagine what it would be like to not have that job. For me, I might get fired for a business reason at some point, but it's definitely going to hit me personally if that happens.
Well, I will tell you, you will survive.
Mm-hmm.
I did retire from both being fire chief and being state fire academy director. And I find other things to do, but you can survive retirement. You may not think so, but even Jim Greason, my former boss, state fire marshal, it took him about 60 days to get into retirement. And Judy, his wife, told me that it took him a little while to accept that, yeah, I'm retired. I don't have to go to the office. So you all been very good listening to us. We got a poll question for you, and just one more poll question. So this one will take a minute or two for you to, to think about and then answer. If you were to take just 10% more responsibility for the quality of my relationships, I would do what? How we doing, Sherry?
I'm not showing where it's letting me open it again. It's not letting me activate it. So sorry.
Well, I guess, all right, let's just look at the ones that we have maybe not talked about a lot. I'm just looking at the.
I can read it off for you, John. I can see it.
Okay, go ahead.
It's listen more was 25% of the audience feels that way. Socialize with friends was 16%. Identify your emotional triggers, 13%. Get out of the office, 16%. Become an expert in empathy, 9%. Knowing when to yield, 3%. Be curious, 15%. And read between the lines, 3%.
Wow. Okay. Well, listen more. I think we probably beat that one up on you guys quite a bit today there. I'm a little surprised at the empathy being 3%, because I think that is one of those things about, from a leadership perspective, is it's not have a soft spot in your heart for somebody, but I guess it is. Is it understand? You remember when you had to sit across the desk from your supervisor because all of a sudden you get a phone call that says, hey, the boss wants you to see you in the office? Do you remember what that felt like? And so my point is, have a little empathy for that. Remember your feelings when you now call somebody else into your office. I will tell you that when you have, in my opinion, when you have somebody in your office, you do not sit behind your desk.
Absolutely.
You sit at a conference table or someplace because they know you're in charge, and you don't have to stuff it down their nose because you're sitting behind the desk with the title, your nameplate on there says Director of Operations or Fire Chief or Deputy Chief. They know that. You don't have to stuff that down their nose. So get out from behind your desk and maybe go meet them on their turn or turf. So that would be one thing. Anything on empathy, Lee, or anything on any of them that you want to?
Yeah, I just want to mirror what you said just there, because I was taught a long time ago that a desk is a barrier. It's between you and another human being. And sure, someone walks in for a very short conversation, we'll have it in my office. But if I'm having a person come in to talk to me, I go to neutral ground. I go to a conference room and get totally out of my office 100% because I'm striving for an end when I'm meeting with someone for that type of thing. I'm not trying to laud over them that I'm in charge and you're going to do what I say. I'm trying to get them to agree that a change is needed. And I just think being in the office with a barrier and whether we like it or not, we appear as an authority figure to the utmost when we're sitting in that environment.
Yep. Good point. Good point. All right. Well, thank you all for answering, participating in the poll questions today. Here's the different ones that we asked. These will all be in the PowerPoint that you can download. So we got, I'm quoting a fire chief friend, both Lee and I know, retired, having lunch with him probably a couple weeks ago. We're talking about this issue. I said, we're doing this relationship webinar, and he made this comment about success is built with connections, and connections occur because of relationships. And he was telling me about his daughter who just graduated from college, and she's looking for a job. She wanted to get a really good job. She's got a pretty good education in IT and communication, stuff like that. And Dale said, ooh, I happen to think about this person that works at a very large international company that might deliver boxes to your door at your house. I shouldn't say the name of the company. And he goes, I know somebody pretty high up in the ranks there. So he called her up, and his daughter now has a job paying 6 figures and is working here in Evansville. It's all because of the relationship, the connection that he had made with that person. And so from a leadership perspective, from the EMTB or the private, as you start to look about how are you going to get promoted, improve your capabilities, so on and so forth, it is about connections. Meet people. Get out and meet people consistently. Lee, you want to add anything?
I've never met a person that I disliked once I really spent the time to sit down and talk with them. There are a lot of people that even today, I probably in the back of my head dislike simply because I haven't taken the time to find out who they really are.
I think that is a very good point, because at a distance, you're making an impression. They make an impression based upon how they look, how they walk, and how they talk. And you can make a bad decision based upon that impression until you sit down with them and go, wow, they have some of the similar concerns that you have. So, all right. So, this next slide relates to influence. I have a big person on influence because it's not about, again, what you know, it's about who you know. And if you have to use your badge to influence someone, you're going to fail repeatedly until you learn that influence is not about rank. Influence happens because of respect. And so you earn respect by giving respect. And so that would be my closing comments. Lee, anything?
Just that anytime we get the opportunity to talk to somebody that we don't know very well, and especially when it's someone in another entity that you respond with, I have a dozen fire departments I work with, 2 law enforcement agencies. Anytime somebody wants to get together and talk, I move things off my schedule to make that happen. Because it's not about making sure I have those people where I know what's going on. It's about learning who they are so that when they bring something up, I am better predisposed to understand what they are saying to me so that I can serve them better.
All right, Lee, thank you very much for helping me out this week, I guess I helped you out, whatever you want to call it. But this is we have 2 more housekeeping slides after this. But, went in this with this quote for you all on the audience that you're 100% responsible for what goes on in your life. Don't blame somebody else for your failures, because it's up to you. In today's environment, we blame a lot of others for what goes on in our life, but it's up to you. You get up every morning. Eddie Buchanan told me this many years ago. You decide your attitude when you wake up in the morning. And so when you look at what you're responsible for in your life, your attitude impacts your life. Lee, any closing comment?
No, just always take the opportunity with the outstretched hand. That's all I can say.
All right. Sherry, we got any questions or answer questions?
There's no actual questions, but Josh does make the comment of show grace and mercy, forgive daily. And Dan suggests that a great course is the IAFC SHS Bullying and Harassment in the Fire Service Awareness. And I wanted to point out, Nuno, our friend from Portugal, has joined us again this week.
Welcome, Nuno. All right. Well, for those that are on the webinar, it has been recorded, so you can come back and you can haunt Lee and I for what we said if you want to argue with us, but that's fine. And there is a survey we asked you. You do get an electronic certificate, so you can have this for in-service records or anything like that. We do appreciate everybody coming. We appreciate everybody's attendance almost every week. We know we have some different people, but we certainly do appreciate that. And so with that, we'll say thank you, and we'll see you all next time.